your ambition, a general catalyst, is to try and attempt to solve large, ambitious problems with the use of technology and specifically AI. But in the context of drug discovery, breakthroughs for cancer, and so on and so forth. I mean, those are really the large world-scale problems that we're talking about. Where are we in being able to leverage the power of AI to actually get something going on the ground?
Yeah, so look, we describe ourselves as a global investment and transformation company rather than a venture capital firm. And the whole idea is work with the most ambitious founders, create enduring companies, catalyze ecosystems, and transform industries. And that's sort of the way we think about our work. And, there's industries where AI can be heavily used immediately. So in the services part of it, it's actually pretty applicable already. When you take something like drug discovery, AI can help you maybe identify potential targets, but then you do have to put it in the FDA machine to actually make that work. So some of the way things get done isn't ready for AI to have its full benefit either. So I do think those things are actually going to be slower than people think in how they manifest themselves into a fundamentally different supply chain. And then there's some, like, as I said, like different use cases and services where the models are good enough, the economics are strong, the experiences for the end users are going to be great, and you can actually do that stuff today.
You know, I want to address the issue that we were just talking to Rajiv Chandrasekhar about as well, and which is innovation has traditionally always outpaced regulation, and we're seeing this play out even in the context of AI. And whether it's the US or here in India, what should you regulate? How should you regulate? Who should regulate? Who puts in the guardrails? I think all of those are open questions at this point in time. How do you look at the regulatory challenge? How do you also look at the fact that as we enter this AI era, there needs to also be a harmonization as far as regulation is concerned?
So I always think about it at a global level, country level, and then sort of as a company level. At the global level, I think with AI, we just want to make sure we're not developing these technologies in a way that they can be harmful, and all the imagination of the sci-fi companies sort of, you guys can all think about that. At a country level, I think every country needs to think about the fact that if it's going to be a source of competitive advantage, and you regulate progress at the infrastructure layer, you will be disadvantaged. And Europe's the biggest victim of that. We're actually working with different countries and in Brussels on how to think about it in a more forward-thinking, innovative, innovation-friendly way. US is all about let's have a level playing field and let's make sure infrastructure. We win the infrastructure race. We even created tariffs on technologies to create that advantage.
Export controls.
Everybody's doing that, right? So I think every nation needs to think about, from a development of technology perspective, are they creating a source of competitive advantage and sovereignty around the intelligence layer? At a company level, I sort of look at it as, we can have a responsible innovation mindset around, unintended consequences and try to be forward-leaning about, hey, let's make choices that help minimize those. And those tend to be where technology hits human beings and society as opposed to the infrastructure itself, because infrastructure is neutral. But how we're applying it in healthcare or education, like, can we make sure we're not leaving people behind? So healthcare should be proactive, affordable, accessible. Are we really building the AI systems in a way that that's what the world's going to look like or not? So I think sort of thinking through these societal systems in the way we build companies and having a responsible AI protocol around that, that's something we also do advocate for.
And do you believe that this needs to be done at the core, at the very design level, as founders look at building out their companies? And I'll ask you this in the context of Snap, for instance, because I just had a conversation with Evan, and he said, look, we were always mindful and conscious of the fact that we wanted this to be a space, a safer space, and hence our problems are very different from the Metas and the TikToks of the world. So at the design stage, as an investor in Snap, do you believe that that's something that founders need to focus much more on?
Yeah, I spent time with Evan and Bobby. They were on campus at Stanford, and I don't know if folks remember when the app actually started. It was the original place where we were getting a lot of traction was sexting. And so we spent a lot of time with them saying, are they creating that, or is technology kind of just going in that direction, and then they have a path to navigate the community into the right directions? And they were very well-intentioned. So I think the mindset and the mechanisms of the company matter. Technology is always neutral. You can see it go in, think about nuclear. You can build bombs or you can have, clean power. So that digital infrastructure is the same way in a lot of ways. And so to us, it comes down to the mindset of the entrepreneurs and what are they trying to do.
So let's talk about what's happening in the US. You've got a Trump administration that will take office in January. You've also got Elon Musk playing a very crucial role in what government does or doesn't do. What do you make of this Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk combination to unleash the innovation spirit and innovation quotient in America?
Look, it's not a surprise. It goes back to my global resilience comment. Just like every other country needs to think about what's best for them, the United States is doing the same thing. You know, my personal view is there's some good and some bad in that. I think if you want to build American companies that are uniquely advantaged in the American market, this behavior will serve well. But American companies have actually typically been global companies. And so if we lose followership in the world, we're going to lose that opportunity as well. So I do think sort of being careful about long-term goals of how we build these companies, you know, and prioritize them just as much as how do we make sure the market opportunity in the U.S. is protected for U.S. companies, which is where a lot of that sort of focus is today. I do think that's going to be important, and I'm hopeful that, you know, rational behavior will prevail there from a business leadership perspective.
So what, the behavior currently is not rational?
No, I'm not saying it's not irrational. I'm just saying that in the end, I think the CEOs and the founders are going to make the right choices to build companies that truly can be market leaders globally. You know,
you're talking about entrepreneurs, and I want to ask you this in the context of what you're seeing happen here in India. Of course, the IPO market is one of the big changes that we've seen. Exit options are real now. But what do you see as the big difference between founders and the way that they're thinking about running their businesses today, building their businesses today, versus maybe 10 years ago?
Well, I think the business has changed fundamentally, because before it was the role of technology company was to be an efficiency enabler in different industries and for consumers. Now the ambition and the opportunity for entrepreneurs is far greater, right? We actually have gone from selling software to doctors to building healthcare institutions, selling insurance solutions to actually building insurance companies. So I think that ambition is greater, and the duration it takes to build those companies is greater. So the very best entrepreneurs are just taking on bigger and bigger problems, and that's actually one of the places where we're trying to actively innovate. I don't think the traditional venture capital product that we had as an offering for founders is enough for those founders to build companies that are going to take 20, 30, 40 years and can play a role in these transformations. So we're also innovating to say, what else do they need? And can we actually create the financial apparatus as well as an ecosystem apparatus for them to be successful at that?
You know, you talked about the change in mindset as well as ambition and aspiration of Indian founders, the aspiration to build companies here in India and to take them global. We've seen that play out successfully as far as the SaaS story is concerned. Where do you see that next big wave, so to speak?
Look, I think when you look at how India is going to transform its own core sectors, every one of those, and you're seeing this in the financial services sector already, is an opportunity to leapfrog the world. And if you can make it work here, you're making it work at scale, and you're making it work with a significant cost effectiveness by definition. Well, that gives you the opportunity to be globally competitive. And so I think the work that gets done in thinking about the healthcare infrastructure here, the work in advanced manufacturing, the supply chain that's getting created, every one of these industries that I referenced earlier, you theoretically should be able to create companies that become massive in India, but then have the opportunity to keep compounding because they should have a global opportunity. So
how much of that war chest is actually going to be deployed and put to use here in India?
Said approximately about 10-ish%. I mean, I think that's a number that generally feels right in the context of how much capital is generally getting deployed here. But I do think over time, you know, if we're right about the opportunity here, that number is also going to grow, you know, as we think about the next few years.
Ownership. You know, Indian ownership versus foreign ownership, and a large part of the venture funding has come in on account of foreign capital at this point in time. So a large number of the Indian startups are technically foreign owned. Perhaps a change in regulatory, in the regulatory environment in India, is that a concern potentially as a foreign investor?
That concerns me less. The dynamics of the regulatory environment concerns me more. I think what you want is stability to say, here's the framework. And obviously, India is on this growth path, so it itself is figuring out what those frameworks should be. So there's like a lot of innovation in policy itself. And that induces risk in, well, what policies are you building the companies towards, like what happened in fintech here. So for me, part of the collaboration, I think, that can happen between the entrepreneurial and the business community and the government is around just stabilizing what those frameworks are, because then you know what your guardrails are in which you have to operate. And whatever those ratios are is fine, because the opportunity is so large. I think entrepreneurs will figure out how to adapt to that.
So you're reviewing the bet on fintech in India, considering what we've seen happen
We have
in the last
companies
few
here
months?
in fintech, and there's been such amazing innovation done thanks to Nandan and others that there's a lot that can be done here, but kind of depends on what is that regulatory regime going to be.
Let me end by asking you a quick question on valuations and where you see valuations at this point in time. We've seen a lot of the froth coming off. Do you believe that we're done with the correction, or is there still more room?
Well, markets in the U.S. are extremely buoyant right now.
But we haven't seen any new IPOs.
But I think IPO market is going to open up second half of next year once the new administration settled in. There's a lot of companies that should be public, but no one was going to go in uncertainty around what the administration is going to look like. So I do think that's going to open up. And with the excitement in the public markets, it probably takes 6 to 9 months before it starts impacting the private markets. So let's see how long this momentum sustains around the excitement in the markets. But long term, I do think the IPO market is going to open up, and we're excited about that over the next 6 to 12 months.
Hemant, it's been an absolute pleasure. Many, many thanks for joining us here at the CNBC-TV18 Money Control Global AI Conclave. Appreciate your time, and thanks very much for being here with us.